Powering on. Welcome to Alltech Lansing.
Keep researching,
learning,
learning,
following that, observing that, practicing that. And then that grows into a little bit more of a passion or a hobby or maybe even a career. Then one of those things usually sorts itself out over a period of time when you have success and feedback with it into almost an obsession. Oh my God, I love doing this. And most people around you think, that's crazy. Why are you putting all that time to it? And they think you're obsessed in a negative way, but you're actually in a healthy way, really focused and dedicated, and you have devotion to that.
All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. I have an icon here today. Maybe the most perfect time ever to have the perfect person at the perfect time I have sitting across from me right now. And, when I got into personal development, everywhere I would go, this man's name would come up. I'm sitting at a Dodger game with Larry King one night, and I'm describing what he goes, Brendan Bouchard. Everywhere I would go. And I thought, when I heard your name, this dude must be in his 60s because he's a legend already. And then when I got to research you and get to know you, I'm like, this guy's even younger than I am. And then we did a podcast together which just blew up and went all over the internet. And I'm like, I'm going to have him back on again. So Brendan Bouchard, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Milet, it's an honor, man. It really is an honor. It's been so great getting to know you and coming in today and seeing this all put together like this. Like, all right, Ed.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it geeks me out.
It's pretty cool. Our first show blew up so big, and I have to tell you, getting to know you, we've become really good friends lately. And you have a unique energy. And in fact, you have an energy of like nobody that I know. And I didn't know where it came from. And then recently we were somewhere together and you told a story. And I think, you meet someone like you, you've affected millions and millions and millions of people for decades. You're also sort of a leader amongst the leaders in personal development. Other leaders look to you for advice and counsel and guidance often. I see many of them do it. And to think of where this actually started and where you were, I think will just give people unbelievable hope and really some insight. So take us all the way back to where this journey started for you.
Yeah, well, in the personal development journey, it began because I needed a lot of development.
So did I. I relate.
The story is, I was a 19-year-old kid, and I had fallen deeply in love with my high school sweetheart, and we thought we were going to get married. And so she wanted to go to college, and I just wanted to do landscaping. I just wanted to work, in my small little town in Montana that we were growing up in. I didn't have these big, crazy ambitions to reach people and inspire people. I was just happy. I've always been a very simple man, very simple. She wanted to go to college. I said, okay, I'll go to college. So I hitched a U-Haul to the back of my 1988 Nissan Sentra. I welded it myself. Put it on little 6x9 U-Hauls. We put all our stuff in. We drove over the Continental Divide to University of Montana in Missoula and went to college together. And in our first semester, she went outside the relationship and cheated. And I don't know about you, but if you ever had your whole identity tied up into a relationship, and then that relationship falls apart, you fall apart. And that's what happened. I didn't have the emotional tools or maturity to deal with it. So I fell deeply into depression. My best friends, who were always fun guys, they couldn't get me out of bed. I didn't want to go to classes because I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I signed up for all the classes when she was there. So I stopped going to classes, which I guess is not abnormal for a college freshman, but
Right. But not getting out of bed is not.
No. Couldn't get. Just severely depressed. That eventually led into suicidal ideation, and not just thinking about it, like planning and writing letters. It was there. And then two things changed my life. One, I was always a bookish kid. I loved to read. And so I was still reading the school newspaper. And one day, my roommate was so worried about me, he'd bring me food and a newspaper. And I read the newspaper, I was flipping through it, and there was this big, beautiful ad. So reading the impulse changed my life. But then there was this ad. And it was this big, I still remember the ad. This ad that was a blue background, white sandy beach, turquoise perfect ocean, palm trees, And the best title in the world for a broken kid, at the top it said, Escape.
Yeah.
It said, summertime jobs for students in the Dominican Republic. And I'm from Montana. I didn't know where that was.
Right.
But I knew she wasn't there.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going. So a buddy of mine, we decided to go down. We worked for an entrepreneur, and we basically became glorified tour guides.
Yeah.
One night we hop into a car, my friend's driving. We go to return back to where we were staying, and we're flying down the road, going 85 miles an hour on this long straightaway road they just paved. And we came upon a corner that in the U.S., they would have had one of those big, U-turn shaped arrows. Watch out, slow down, sharp corner ahead, 15 miles an hour. But we came upon that corner and didn't see it, no sign. So my friend who was driving grabbed the wheel. Brendan, hold on. And just cranks on this wheel to navigate the turn, but it's too late, we're going too fast. So this car starts sliding sideways, I brace like this, and over the next couple moments, it really shifted everything. That corner became the turning point in my life. Literally. Because when you brace like that, and it's the end of your life, if you have a moment of cognition, you think about, am I ready to die? These questions or this feeling, this impulse goes through, and I don't know what it was for me, but it's like later on I debriefed, it's like questions. It's like that first feeling is like, if you're crashing to death's doorway, you want to know, did I live? If this is it, did I live my life? Did I live, joyously, authentically, happily, engaged, appreciative, grateful, connected? And you want to know, did you live your life? Well, I hadn't been living my life. I'd been thinking about taking one. So I didn't like the answer to that. And this car starts going sideways off the side of the road, smashes in this little retainer wall. It was like these bricks and this rocks that they use for irrigation ditch for nearby sugarcane. Hit that, pops the car up in the air. I smack my head on the side of the door, and I started seeing all these images and like these scenes of life.
Of your life?
Of my life. Yeah, and it wasn't, what's the fancy word? It wasn't omniscient. Like, I see little Brendan going along, getting a little bigger and bigger and bigger. Instead, it was like from my own vantage point, from first person. So I would see, at my birthday party, there was my friends in front of me, my cake, and my mom, singing the goofy song she sings on my birthdays. And I'd look over and I could see my sister on the swing set next to me in the backyard. And literally I could see her and feel the swing set, and we'd be like, kerclunk, because my dad had made the backyard swing set, and the one pole was always coming.
There's always one pole, right? There always is. I had that too. Yep.
And so I could feel that and sense that, and the emotion was there. And so what I saw was all these scenes in my life when I was surrounded by people I loved. And those scenes that you see make you wonder, did I love?
Yo, what up, NY Dust?
Did I really love and connect with people? Because you do wonder who's going to miss you and who you're going to miss. I know it sounds funny to tell it on the story of that, but if you've ever been in an accident, this is all happening in slow motion. Right? This felt so real and so slow motion. Well, the car hits the ground, rolls several times. I'm not completely out. When I come to, my friend who's driving is screaming, "Get out of the car, get out of the car, get out of the car." And I look over, and he's got this huge chunk of his head. There's like blood all over. His eyes are wild like an animal. Get out, get out, get out, get out, Brendan. He gets out. I don't know if the car's on fire. I don't know what's going on. I try to get out, but the car is smashed on top of me. So all I got is the parts of the windshield in front of me, this little opening. So I smash through that. And I stand up on the hood of this car, and it's the first time I kind of look down at my body, and there's just blood everywhere. He's screaming something at the side of the car, and I'm just, I'm in that shock moment and that terror moment. And I look down, and I see the blood going off of my toes onto the hood of this car, and I'm terrified. I'm just terrified. I think I'm gonna die. And I see the blood going.
Yo, what up, Rev?
And I can't
Nice,
even
buddy.
breathe anymore. I'm just in this weird space, and I look down and I see this reflection in the blood going off the hood of the car, and it makes me look up, and there's this bright, big, beautiful moon that night.
Probably nothing like Italian pizza, though, let me tell you.
From this moment of fear to looking up, and I connect.
Sorry to rub that in. I'm sure you're missing Italy, homie.
Just this moment where I felt peace, I felt like I was going to be okay. I felt like I knew I was going to be okay. I later on called it life's golden ticket because I felt like the big guy upstairs, saw this kid wondering if he lived and loved and mattered. Because when I looked down at all that blood, I just thought, did I even matter? This is it. And I felt like the big guy was like, hey, you're still alive, you can still love.
That's nice, man. That's awesome.
But now, kid, now you know the clock is ticking. And that was it.
I do like American pizza though too. But I mean, just like
This
Italian
is-
pizza is just the ingredients and everything is next level.
I gotta change. It just sometimes some people to change, they need a smack in the head. That was me. I need a smack in the head. I don't want to ruin the story, but I lived. Kevin, my friend, he lived. It was a terrifying experience for both of us. We got out of the country. We ended up getting back home. But when I got back home, everything was different because now I knew life. I got it. At the end of our lives, we're going to ask, did I live? Did I love? And did I matter? And maybe some people ask other questions. You still might ask, was I a good father? Was I a good servant? Was I a good leader? Was I a good son? Was I, you can ask all these other
I
questions.
kind of feel like that fits under those categories, though. That
Yeah.
fit under love, was a
Right.
good father, right?
Yeah.
I think you sum it up with those three pretty well.
Yeah. So we're 26 years from that night, and every night I go to bed, and I ask, did I live today? Did I love today? Did I matter today? It's not like every night I'm like, yes, yes, I did. But the nights I can say yes to most of those questions, the nights I sleep the best. And those formed by accident, which I didn't know at the time, a very intentional life. Like people, so you were talking about my energy. It's because each day I'm going to live. Like I am going to have more fun in most of my days than most people.
You do.
Even though I go through the same thing.
You do.
Like we were talking about yesterday, I was on like 7 Zooms.
Yep.
Right? But I had a blast on those Zooms. Today I was driving over.
Spec,
Uber
crazy
ride
man.
over here. I had a blast with the driver. The producer lady who walked me in here.
I don't know what spec is.
Laughing out. Like, I'm just gonna have fun. And that's from that. Did I live? Because I want to live joyously and in the moment and be present. And I love people, which Like I think that's one thing
For sure. That's evident.
has always connected us.
And you definitely matter.
Thank you.
You definitely matter. You matter to me. Second time I've heard parts of that. It just gets me. I have to tell you that there is something special about you. I want everyone to listen to that story. Obviously, it's a dramatic story and it's an emotional story. But I want you to think for a second through Brendan the possibilities of life. That he goes from, basically writing letters to end his own life, to then on this trip.
Tortilla dough, that's cool. Like corn, like a corn dough.
And then from that moment,
That's also really
just those
tasty.
two things alone to go, I want to die, I want to die. I want to live, right? Just that, to then actually then living from the hood of that car that night to the millions and millions of people you've reached. And each one of them is an individual soul. So not everyone listening is going to reach 50 million people, or whatever the number is you've reached. But they might reach 3 or 1. Or they may reach someone who reaches 50 million people. And the possibilities of
Reaching
life,
you too, and then why dust
story
and
lies.
rev.
You can go from that, you're almost going to die, bleeding, watching your own
And
blood
you're
on the hood
reaching
of the
me.
car,
You're
going
touching
around
me.
that corner.
In my heart.
To not knowing around that corner is a totally different life for you.
Bolognese,
It's
that's
just-
also nice too.
it's amazing you end up in this space and that incident is the perfect metaphor
That means with pork,
for
right?
change
Bolognese.
in life. Now let me ask you this, here's a tough one. People listening to this say to themselves, I want to change too, but I would prefer not to get rattled around in a car and have to get near death to do it. You said a minute ago, I want to pick that apart a little because some people do need a dramatic moment. But if someone's listening, how does, this is such a broad-based question, but we got two pretty good guys at it sitting here. We might as well work on it together, right? How does one begin to change? What is the catalyst for that? How does one, in your opinion, begin to change?
Well, in the old books of personal development always answer that by it's either inspiration or desperation. Which we know. I'm a little more, I guess, framework driven than that. I think that at some point, all change it's inspired by ambition. Which is funny because people today think ambition's this bad thing. But ambition, whether you call it desire or drive, or you feel like you must, or in psychology we call it psychological necessity. Like I feel like it's necessary. Like it's necessary now. There's no choice. There's no going back. There's a threshold. There's something. Not everyone needs a car accident because You know how many people I've told that story to? You know, millions of people in person, live on stadiums and arenas, or 500 million people on video views now. You know, I've shared to a lot of people say, I was in a car accident too. You know, my car accident was even more dramatic than yours. You know, because they lost a limb or they were disabled. But I didn't change.
Yes.
I didn't change. But why? And ultimately, it comes back to psychological necessity. And we can think about it a couple different layers. One layer is that you are the way that you are because of what we all call the comfort zone, right? There's comfort in who we are, how we behave, I should say. You know, our natural strengths, talents, abilities, just who you are already. That's just your comfort zone. That's how you are. But what happens for other people, there's a layer above that, and they shift because now there's a demand zone. Circumstances demand you change. Your dreams demand that you change. Something external demands that you change. Or you place the demand on your own shoulders because you want a different kind of life. Most people are scared to demand anything from themselves.
Yeah.
And most people, when a demand hits them, it feels like an obligation, and they fight it. They resist it. I don't want that. Oh, you know, you're at work, give me more stuff to do. How dare my manager ask me more? You know, they fight. As soon as a demand approaches them, it's a threat. Other people teach themselves because they're into growth. A demand approaches them, that's challenge. That's character development. Let me see if I can rise to that. So the approach to demand and how we view that as a threat or as a challenge is a fundamental mindset or choice of attitude. And then above that, there's another layer, which is why don't people change? Which oh my gosh, every episode you do, I feel like you're a masterclass on that. And that's what we call the esteem zone.
Okay.
Esteem zone. A lot of people have, comforts and abilities. They could be remarkable. They have natural talents. Other people have lots of demands on top of them. They still don't change. Why? Esteem.
Yeah.
How they view themselves, value themselves, express themselves, relate themselves to the world. Even though they have so much opportunity or so many natural talents, because how many gifted people do we know who never potentialize that gift?
So many.
Because their esteem, their value of themselves, their view of themselves, their belief in their ability to figure things out is so low that it doesn't matter. You could give them the greatest challenges, resources, tools, support, but no one ever cared for them. And they never taught themselves to care for themselves. So how can they change?
Care for themselves. Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I think about your story and I think of two things. I think of, number one, the meaning you took from it. It's not the events of our lives that define us. It's the meaning we take from the events. So you could have taken from that event, my gosh, thanks, God. You have my girlfriend cheat on me that I went away to college with. Now I try to get a break and my car crashes and you almost kill me. I'm doomed. I'm doomed.
I never thought about it that way.
Of course it didn't. And that's why your life is what it is, Brendan. Many people would have taken that event and said, here we go again. I'm doomed. Bad things happen to me. Over and over again. Tragedy. My relationship crashes. Now my car crashes. Now my spirits crashed. You didn't do that. What happened was you took a meaning from it that it was a golden ticket. You even have a term for it, which is a beautiful term, which, by the way, has resonated with me. And the way you got that golden ticket, the way you took that meaning, was the questions you asked yourself. So the quality of our life is oftentimes the quality of the questions. You asked yourself standing there, did I love? Did I live? Do I matter? Did I matter? Those are powerful questions that shaped what it meant for you and shaped what your life meant for you. And so I think both things are true. What you said is 100% true. And for people listening to this, if you want to change your life, you have to change what things mean in your life. Most importantly is the esteem thing. Change who and what you mean. Start to ask different questions about yourself, and you'll get different answers. People say, I got to change the way I think. Okay, what is thinking? Thinking is the process of asking and answering questions to yourself. That's what a thought is. And so if you can change the question, you can change the answer, you change the meaning, you have a chance to change your life. And I feel like the powerful part of that story is, did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? Since you said that to me a long time ago, I ask myself that often, and it guides me. And so I think if you're sitting here going, what are the questions? What am I great at? What are my dreams, right? What are my talents? What are my proclivities? What do I enjoy doing? What emotions do I want to have? What do I deserve to have in my life? And I think if you begin to change those questions and ask them enough times, because the story you tell yourself currently, you've just told it a lot of times.
Yes.
You've asked the questions a lot of times, so it's become your narrative. You've built neural pathways literally in your mind that you've deluded yourself into believing this is who you are. But the truth is, there's been many versions of you. I'm looking at you. There was this version of you that was the in-love young college guy who wanted to be a landscaper.
Yeah.
Then he goes to college. Then he's the depressed you. Then he's the car accident you. Then he's the live, love, matter you. Then you became this unbelievable speaker you. Then you became the personal development you and the coach you and then the coach to the coaches you. And now I look at you, and now you're like this software business mogul pioneer guy. And I think one of the things in this world today is people need more tools. They need more resources. I think winning, and I've argued with this, even Tony Robbins and I have argued about this, but I think winning is as much environmental as it is mental. And Tony would say, no, you can overcome your environment. Absolutely 100% true. But if you can create a great environment around
Yes.
you, then you're more likely to succeed. Sure, people have overcome their environments. I did as a child. You've overcome different environments. But the fastest way to win is to be in an environment of winning. Take an average player, add them to a perennial team like the Lakers or the Yankees. They just play different with that uniform on. A good clubhouse versus a bad clubhouse. And you've created something that I want to know why you did it, number one, because now you're business mogul, Brendan, right? Software mogul, Brendan. But he's got something called Growth Day, guys, that I'm going to let him describe to you, which is the single greatest personal development environment I have ever seen in my life. For someone to create change in their emotions, their body, their business, their mindset, their relationships, you name it. You've created Growth Day. What made you do Growth Day? And this is like the next version of you, I suppose, right?
Yeah, another version of me, because even in our own lives we have different versions of ourselves. I'm the dorky Montana kid at the dinner table having a glass of wine with you,
Yes.
and then we can go out and coach Olympians,
Right,
and
right.
then we can come and have a podcast.
Right.
We all have different sides of our expressions, but what happened with Growth Day was for 15 years I just built my brand. 6 books, 20 online courses, hundreds of millions of video views and downloads, and mostly all our seminars and conferences. So those were all going great. And then the pandemic hits. And 2 things happen in the pandemic. The first thing that happens is we have to stop all of our seminars. And there was an environment, as you were talking about, at our summit. It was so magical. And all of our, thousands and thousands of customers and attendees, they're just like, we love that. We got to see these amazing motivational speakers. We could have this experience. And where's all that going to happen now that we're locked in our houses? Second was, I was part of Gyges, that story of being their first, investor and primary driver of their customers. We had a $2 billion valuation during the pandemic, and I saw the value of software and how it could scale and be valued and reach people, being part of that journey for a decade. And I thought, okay, we can't do conferences anymore. I got to serve people. We got to bring them these voices. I also had this thing called the High Performance Planner, which was a way of organizing your day. Everyone was saying, put that in an app. I had my courses all over here. I had courses with Oprah Winfrey Network over here. I had courses on this platform over there. Just put it all in one place. I had this live broadcasting technology. Everyone wanted all of their personal development in a place.
Yes.
They wanted a home for it. So Denise and I, my wife, we were out walking one day, and we're walking literally under a palm tree, funny story, and this idea comes to me, like, why is everyone suffering so bad right now during this pandemic? I said, because they've lost that access to, that sense of advancement or progress or growth. What people need more of right now is they need more days of growth. They need more growth days. And I said it. People need more growth days. You want to change your life? You need more days of growth. People need more growth days. It came out my mouth. And literally, in a flash of, instantly I knew what it was. I was like, that's it. We're going to create a software. It's growth day. All of your personal development. So your mindset journaling, your habit tracking, your goal setting and planning, your inspiration from the live teachers, from the biggest motivational teachers in the world teaching in their live, to the best courses in personal development that we've acquired, taught, produced, to the greatest community of people. You have 300,000 achievers from around the world in there now who love making self-improvement a way of life. And what I realized was, maybe because we were also displaced in some ways, even though we were at home, during the pandemic, I thought we need a home for personal development.
Yep.
Like all of us who listen to shows like this, where do we go?
Yep.
We go to this podcast or that thought leader. We have these tools over here or journal over there. No one's ever integrated and put it in one place
Yep.
where you could track your notes, track your habits, learn from the best, all in one place. So that was the genesis of starting it, and I didn't know it'd grow so fast.
Yep.
We launched on Independence Day.
Did you
Last
really?
year, Independence Day, July 4th, 2021, we launched it.
Yeah, I think it supersedes we both know that it does, because one thing, the events are great. I do them, you do them, everyone should be participating in them. But then you do leave, and you got to go back to the environment you left from.
Yes.
What I love about Growth Day now is that the environment is with you all the time. The tools, the journaling, the day timer, the information, the inspiration, the topic-specific content that's in there. And it's cool. In fact, I like it so much, everybody, just so you know, I'm dropping content in there. And Brenda's dropping content in there. And so I just think this is revolutionary.
Amaranth is awesome.
I think it's going to change the planet. It's going to change the planet, because now there's a place you go and you tap in and you go, I can grow. Whatever the area is I need today, this month, this week, there's someone in there that's the best in the world that can help me. I mean, it's like nothing. It's nominal cost. It's almost completely inexpensive. So they can download the Growth Day app, correct?
Yeah, they can do it on their phone, or they can go to growthday.com and take a free trial and test it out, see it. One of the things I do in there is I do a daily exclusive life coaching audio.
It's crazy.
So, and it expires every night at midnight. So people come in every day. It's like sticky. They come in, I got to get that message about improving their life. But then they can use all of their tools in there,
Yep.
and then learn from everybody in there. And we've been blessed with the biggest names in the industry coming in there teaching live,
Yep.
because they believe in the mission. Like you said, I believe we can change the world because of this, because when we change ourselves, and we have a system for that. Most people don't have a system
Yep.
for self-improvement. Right? They got a morning routine they kind of cobbled together.
Yeah.
They got a couple books over there they kind of read, haven't quite read.
Yes.
They've got 80 downloads, they haven't quite listened to them. And if you don't have a system prompting you, helping you grow, tracking that progress, you don't measure it, you can't improve it. And if you're not doing something consistently, it's hard to actually grow. So we've built a software that just helps you do that. It prompts you, it inspires you. Most people don't journal because they don't know what to journal about. So we partnered with UPenn's Positive Psychology Department and some of their graduate students and PhDs to create all these research-backed journaling prompts. You know what to write about? Don't worry, just press the morning mindset prompt. It preloads it. Press the monthly, you got a review last month, press the monthly review. The AI generates all these things for you to journal about. So it's smart, and you don't have to know what to do, just literally log in and we'll help you.
I want to always support and endorse things that can change people's lives, and I know this does. I just know that it does. Just go to growthday.com, go download the Growth Day app. You'll be glad that you did. You have my recommendation on it. I'm going to be in there as well. And I'm grateful you had the vision to do it, because here's why. What are the commitments you have to make to change your life? Okay, you have two of the best people in the world here that you're listening to today at this, and I thought about this lately, because you become a very wealthy guy. Your exit from that Kajabi deal wasn't bad. Plus, you've made millions and millions of dollars in your life. I haven't needed to work for money now in 20 years, yet I still have crazy schedules and 18-hour days and all these other things. And I think I figured out what it is that you and I have in common, and that is that I was never about a particular place for me to get, even though I dreamed of different places. So I had places I wanted to get. I wanted to save my first $100,000, and I wanted to make my first $1 million in a year, or make $1 million, or pay off a house free and clear, or retire my mom and dad. I had places I wanted to get to.
Yes.
But unlike most people, those were just like leading indicators that I was doing the right things. They weren't final destinations.
Right.
And I think too often in people's lives, these places they get, they're like, and then they cool it, and it was a final destination for them. And recently I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, I think I know what it is. And I said, now I'm going to start talking about it more. And it's that I'm addicted, obsessed with the expansion of my being. With the growth of my being, of me as a man, of my emotions, of my capacity, of my memories, of my ability to contribute and support people, the amount of fun I can have, the expansion of me.
Yes.
And
I
I
love
think-
that word, expansion.
Yeah, and I really feel like the commitment I would love for all of you to make that are driving right now or running on the treadmill, and by the way, you're kind of doing it a little bit already just by being here, right? Is that the rest of your life is the expansion of you, the expansion of you as a being, as a man or a woman. Aren't you? Don't you feel that way? That's got to
Yeah.
be what your jam is.
That's
Why
it.
else are you sitting here?
That's it.
right?
Well, there's two things there, I would say.
Okay.
I'd add one little element to it. First, that is the greatest of human desires after safety and sustenance, is growth. And because you give someone everything else, but then you take away growth, they're miserable, right? Because look at what happened during the last couple of years when it wasn't expansion, it was constriction. Stay in the house. Don't go out. Be scared. Constriction doesn't feel good. That's why the mental health, dilemma went, 10x in the last 2-3 years, because people were constricted. People want to grow and expand. And so that freedom is a primary human drive. That freedom to become more of who you really can be and do the things that bring us passion and joy and fulfillment. That expansion in that direction is necessary to the human spirit. So, and to me, that's coming back to my framework a little bit. That's the esteem zone. But there's one other element. Because the esteem zone, that's expanding our sense of being. That's growth. But there's one little thing about that. And that's why some people never change, is because we know some people, they expand their esteem, but they expand it only in the sense of ego or achievement.
Contribution.
And service.
Yep.
Service. Like the people who keep going and driving, and the vision gets bigger and bigger, not because it's the vision for their personal brand. It's the vision of impact. It's the vision for people.
Yes.
The vision for their team, the vision for their culture, the vision for the industry, the vision for the future, the vision for that underserved audience. It's service.
Yeah, I'm glad you say it that way, because I think I take that for in my own life. That's sort of where I've been for the last 30 years. That's why I said, when I said the expansion of my being, my ability to give.
That's right.
My ability to
serve.
contribute. It's the only thing in my life that's never not felt great permanently. Meaning, when I've got a jet or a house or money or whatever it is, it feels good for a while. And by the way, you should always have those things, because they do create safety, and you can you can make a difference for yourself. And by the way, if they're going to have nice things in the world, you ought to have them if you can have them. But the staying power of how good it feels shrinks over time.
Yeah.
And I think the more you get these things, the less cool they stay. The duration of time that they're cool shrinks too.
Yes.
Like the first time I did something really cool, it was like, man, that new car lasted a long time. Then the next one less. And then eventually it's like, it was good for like 4 days.
Right.
Yeah,
You got a
like
car.
3.
You got a garage full of 20 of them. You're like,
Yeah,
okay,
it was good. But the serving another being,
Yeah.
helping another person, that has never gone away.
Right.
It has never
The
ever
grace
shrunk.
is that our heart of service cannot be satiated. And so for you and I, like, we're people of faith, we believe in God. It's like, well, God's still expanding the universe. That's right. And hey, he could stop it, at planet number, 1,000. But no, it's like still building galaxies and universes. It's still expanding out. Whether you believe in God or you just think that's just like some Big Bang amazingness, right? It's that
Either way,
we
it's
can
the
be.
way of the
You can
world.
be. I can satiate you with chocolate cake right now, right? You get done. You just, oh my God, too much chocolate cake. Stop. Right? Please, no more food. But in serving others, that's what makes us uniquely human. That we cannot be satiated in our service.
How do you think someone figures out how they best serve people? People listen to go, that's theoretically awesome. How do I serve? I don't know what I ask you hard stuff because I think you're
Yeah.
the most qualified. Like you and I in a room, we gotta ask the hard stuff of each other, right? Like, I think most people are like, yep, I got that. I want to do the growth thing. I got that. I got the whole I should be serving people thing. Not sure exactly what my jam is in serving people.
Yes.
I have my version of a weird pathway there, and I'll give you mine, but give me yours first. How do I know how I best serve people?
Yeah.
Tough question.
It is if you try to answer it. I don't try to answer it. I think it's destined. I think God has a plan. I think you have been uniquely equipped through your life's journey by the struggles, the difficulties, the heartbreaks, your parents, the efforts, the goals, the dreams. Yeah, you manifested a lot, but you didn't know that person was going to show up in your seminar room that day. You didn't know that person was going to show up in your office that day. You didn't know that person who needed to hear this message right now heard that. You did not know that interaction of where your service would go would apply to that person. Like, I never knew that my story of a car accident would be in Ed Milet's head one day. So I believe what we do is we take our life's journey and what we're good at, and we try to apply that for some goodness, for some cause, for something that impacts people. And its ultimate impact, who it reaches, will change. So we all can point to parts in our life where we did something pivotal, like something happened and someone says, thank you for that. That made a difference to me. And go, it did? Really? Like, I never knew I was going to write a book. I would tell my stories to people and they're like, you got to write that down. I go, I do?
Me too.
It's, yeah, right?
Yes.
So it's like, I never knew I'd do a podcast. You should do a podcast right now. I should? So I know some people, you and I both know people, they can architect it out from, age 7
Yes.
all the way. They had that vision. They were gifted with that and everything else. The rest of us, and most people, they go through a little bit of a meandering journey in life, and they get feedback from others about how they've impacted them, or about what they like, or they have a passion, they hobby, and they put it out there, and it has resonance. And what we're really doing is we're following a resonance.
I agree with
We all think we're following a plan that we've made. I actually think we're following resonance. We're following some feedback that the universe or God is giving us. And if we can listen and tune into that and tap in or meditate or pray and feel that guidance, I think that's when it's a different flow than when it's like, I have to do these things. I just want to come back to what you were saying about the cars and everything else. Most people's first taste of success actually came from scenes of desire. I have a scene of being on that beach with my spouse, or I have a scene of that car, or they had a scene, and then they get to the scene, and they realize, I'm living the scene of my dream. But then at the end of the night, they go, okay, what's the next scene? So we have to keep manifesting these scenes, which are really goals. We're manifesting these goals. But the journey and where that destination ends up, I think, is that's a little more divine or guided, or if you might call it feedback or resonance.
Well, let's talk about some of that feedback, because we agree on that. Some of that feedback that I think you can get is actually, I'm going to give you guys a little a stimulus to maybe part of your path. I totally agree with that, by the way. I think part of that feedback is through admiration. Meaning, if you think about people that you admire in your life, oftentimes there's something about them that intuitively you think similarly may exist in you. What I mean by that is, like, one of the people that I admired most in my life was Dr. King. Now, Dr. King was not a perfect person in every single area of his life, but what he was incredibly inspiring and courageous, and was also an orator. And so there were things that I admired about him that if I look back now, that I delineate down, that at the time maybe I wouldn't have known, but those were things about me that I should be expressing. I admired my mother and her unbelievable ability to hold our family together during chaos and tragedy and stress. I just admired my mom. And in hindsight, there was a part of me that is wired to be able to be calm under duress and pressure. So it may not be the way they expressed it. Some of you, I admire Beyonce. What do you admire about her? Her vocal ability? Is it there? Is it maybe the way she holds herself, her confidence level? There are things about people we admire that are well known or that are in our personal lives that may be leaving you some clues as to things that you see yourself in them. I know that sounds crazy. You're like, no, I would never be like Dr. King. I would never be like me. I would never be like my mom. Not so fast. Maybe they're the ultimate expression of things that exist within you, and maybe that's part of that feedback.
Yes. Yeah, because, the standard answer to personal development is, do what you're passionate about. But there's a ton of research out there saying people don't know what their passions are.
Right.
So, all the psychologists always say, well, follow your interests. What are you interested in? What are you fascinated by? What do you admire? And keep researching, learning, following that, observing that, practicing that. And then that grows into a little bit more of a passion or a hobby or maybe even a career. Then one of those things usually sorts itself out over a period of time, even when you have success and feedback with it, into almost an obsession. Like, oh my God, I love doing this. And most people around you think, that's crazy. Why are you putting all that time to it? But and they think you're obsessed in a negative way, but you're actually in a healthy way, really focused and dedicated, and you have devotion to that thing. And
That's a great word.
I
Devotion.
love that. Yeah, I have devotion to service. You know, you and I both. There's literally no earthly reason we have to do what we're doing right now. This is devotion to reaching people with positivity. This is devotion to reaching people so that maybe they do live and love and matter or feel that a little bit more. So we have devotion to our work, and that work in terms of mission or purpose or career. But you don't start with that when you're 15. You know, usually you follow these interests. One of those interests or fascinations or admirations turns into something, maybe a career or maybe some success. And that now turns into a little bit more passion and then a little bit more obsession. And then it's just who you are, man.
Yes.
And everyone's like, how'd you get there? And you're like, I don't really know. But that's how it always sounds.
It's so true. And by the way, it's normal to feel unqualified. I want to share this with everyone knows. I always tell people, like, I tell our audience all the time, like, stuff really going on with me. And so about 2 weeks ago, the event you were at with me,
Yes.
you came down and did me a tremendously huge favor. Did an unbelievable job. Dean Graziosi was supposed to be there, and Lisa's about to give birth to their child, and so you go, I'll come in this place. And so you in the last minute stepped up in a way that was just in the
Well,
job.
the event you put on, so the context is this is people who supported Ed's book.
My book, in
so
big ways.
He's rewarding them with this incredible event.
Yeah.
That actually wasn't even supposed to be an event. He just decided,
Yeah.
wait, they're coming out. We're going to put together this incredible room of teachers and inspiration. Then they're going to come to my house. Like, you went all in.
And it was just
unreal.
unreal.
It
And
was unreal.
everybody was unbelievable that day.
So fun.
But you were up there, and my jaw was just like, oh my gosh, right? Like, because I haven't had a chance to be in a room. You've seen me speak a bunch of times, or a couple times, but I haven't had a chance to just sit and be fed
Yo,
by you.
what up, Baron? How's it
And I
going,
was
man?
just
What's
blown
up, homie?
away. So anyway, while we were at that event, I get a call to come out of the room, and I'm like, I'm at my event, and it's a very well-known person that's been on my show, and they go, no, you need to take my call right now. So I go out, and what it was is I was being invited to, he goes, someone asked me for your phone number, but I want to make sure I have permission to give it, and they want you to be on this particular board. And I'm like, I don't need another board. They're like, yeah, you do. And they start naming to me the
Cool
other people
emote.
on the board. I'm like, whoa, okay. What's the hook here, right? Why would they want me? Immediately, even at my age, at
Why
my
me?
stage, why me? I'm not qualified. So anyway, the last few weeks I've gone through it, and then this morning I had the final call with them, and I accepted the position. But at the end of the call, I said, can I now ask you guys a question? This is me. So this is normal, everybody. I go, why do you want me? How am I qualified to be doing this? And the truth of the matter is, I was qualifying myself all my life, what you just said. I was qualifying myself when my dad was drinking and he came home. I was qualifying myself when I was struggling as an entrepreneur. I was qualifying myself when I was coaching people. I was qualifying myself when I'd drive home at the end of a night and think about quitting and want to quit so badly. I was qualifying myself when I was reading books on the beach when everyone else was drinking beers that day at the beach. So you just need to know you are qualifying yourself by living your life.
Yes.
And to have this thing in you that says, I'm going to serve people. Who do I admire? What's the feedback I'm getting? And begin to just try more things. Begin to do more things. Now let me ask you the next level question. Someone says, I kind of got all that. I kind of know where I'm going. I know what I want to do. I'm pretty damn focused. I got that obsession thing you're talking about. And you did high performance habits, which separates the really high performers from the ones that perform pretty well, right? And so someone says, I want to be the damn best at whatever I'm doing. I'm opening a chain of dry cleaners. I'm training horses. I'm going to be the greatest mother in the history of the world. Whatever the thing is, what separates, I know there's a whole book that's been written on this, but give us a few things that people may not think about that separates people. Go, I am focused, I am on my mission. What could separate me? What are some of the things that I must be doing to be the best?
Yeah, first, always frame that as habits. It has to be habits. A lot of people think it's just mindset. I'm like, mindset is a habit of thought, right? It's like, well, it's how you deal with people. That's a habit of interaction. Like, so always just like realize it's a habitual pattern or practice that you're doing. But what separates people is not the habits that everyone wants to talk about in the popular literature or books. It's like, these small habits or atomic habits or automatic habits or, unconscious habits. Those are valuable. Those are very important. But high performance requires deliberate habits. A deliberate habit means you kind of have to force yourself to do it. It's not easy. It's not automatic. It's not tiny. It's like, it's that going the extra mile thing. It's never going to be easy. You're never going to condition it to be automatic. La, la, la. It's like, no, it's the tough work of life to go to another level. You want to be at the top. It's really friggin' hard. It's hard. You have to accept that. And so what we did is we studied. We said, what is that difference maker? We spent $1 million on research, like the largest research study that's ever been done on high performers worldwide. 90 countries, 90 different countries that we surveyed the highest performers. These tend to be not the top 15%. They tend to be the top 5%. And the difference between the top 15 and the top 5% is this: it kind of falls in the definition of high performance. High performance means succeeding over the long term in any industry or endeavor or whatever, while still maintaining positive well-being and relationships.
I want to hear about this.
What high performers have answered is, how do you succeed over the long term without wrecking your health, your mindset, your positivity, and your relationships? We know lots of successful people, but they ruined all their relationships. We know successful people, they ruined their health. They're not high performers, they wouldn't qualify. So what do? It's different practices. We call them high performance habits. So you mentioned these people, they already have clarity, developing clarity, and constantly revisiting to become clear every day. What is my intention? What is my intention? What is my intention? That revisit of clarity is supremely important to them.
Revisiting it.
Yes. Not setting a goal on January 1st and forgetting it. It's literally consistency in intention. Like every day you hear about high performers, they look at their goals. Every day you set your intention. When I work with Oprah, she taught me, every meeting you have with Oprah, she starts with, what's our intention of this meeting? Every meeting. Because that's seeking clarity. So high performers should seek clarity more often. Second habit is generating energy. They generate the energy they want to experience in life, and they want other people to experience. They're not waiting for joy, they're not waiting for happiness, they're not waiting for positivity, they generate it. They are so much more conscientiously designing the energy around them, and you feel it, right? And by the way, everyone should know this. Ed is, I would say, in the very top keynote speakers on earth today. Like what you can do on stage is unbelievable. It's not even, I mean, you're talking a handful of humans who can do this. And what you do is you generate and move the energy of the room way more consciously than the average speaker. The average speaker is kind of insecure a little bit. Doesn't mean you don't have insecurity or doubts up there. What it means is he's moving the room. Like he's taking them on a wild ride. He's generating the energy. That's the difference between an underperforming speaker and a high-performing speaker. Another piece is the productivity piece, which I know is so basic, but most people are so unbelievably not productive.
Yes.
I mean, it's stunning. You know,
It is stunning.
the average person is losing an hour a day to Facebook or Instagram, and then watching 4 hours of television. That's 5 hours a day of consumption. If you can turn those let's take 1 hour. Let's say no, we're talking high performance. If we can get you 1 hour a day back, 1 hour a day of focus back, that's 30 hours a month.
Crazy.
That 30 hours a month. That's 7 hours a week. Well, that means you got an extra day.
Yeah.
That's an extra 8-hour workday that you got. That's an unfair advantage.
Yes.
So getting people their focus back in a world that has, the highest paid engineers in the world paid to strip your attention away so you consume versus create and be and live, that is a primary differentiator right now.
How about stay on that a minute? I so agree with you. And the more I've started to coach people and I actually get into their lives, how not only do they waste time, but how little time, Brendan, this is huge for everyone, that they do on things every day that move the needle. Like move the needle in your company, move the needle in your relationship, move the needle in your body. It's like you're just doing little things all day. You gotta sometimes do stuff that moves it, right? Like I'll give you one small example. My relationship with my children. They're both away at college. I have great relationships with my kids, but they're both away at college, and I'm busy, and they're busy, and there are days where we just text.
Yeah.
Their mom's on the phone with them all the time. And I thought, am I moving the needle in this? It's okay. I did what I'm supposed to do today. I'm communicating with my kids. I know that sounds very, organized or methodical, but does that move? Does Bella know I love her a lot more when she gets my text message? Does Max know I believe in him a lot more? What would move the needle? I gotta call them. Now this may sound silly to all of you, but I'm trying to, most high performing thing I could do in my relationship with my children is to call them. In a lot of relationships, the text doesn't move the needle. The call moves the needle. The thing in your company that you're doing all these little, what's the thing that gets the big account, that moves the account, that creates the most leverage, that move the needle more often,
Another
right?
exact phrase of that is efforts of impact. So in the research, high performers, this is great for all those who are like, oh my God, Brendan, yeah, Ed, you're right, this is overwhelming, it's a lot of stuff to do, oh my God. Well, the research showed in 90 countries around the world that high performers spend 60% of their week there. Efforts of impact, needle moving things. So when you look at their calendar each day, it's not, are they 100% high performing all day? Look, they got to answer emails. They got to reply to dumb DMs. They got to take that stupid call once in a while. We think they're perfect. No, it's just that 60% of their effort is directed to activities that actually make an impact. They got to do 40% of administration or household work too. It's just that most of their effort, 60%, is geared towards what moves that needle, gets that significant impact.
What a powerful question to ask yourself if you're listening to this. In whatever area you pick your area, your relationship, your company, your money. How much of your time is efforts of impact, moving the needle stuff? And if you just tweak that by 11%, 16%, how much different would your life be 3 years from now, 1 year from now? This is why you listen to the show, everybody. It's like, I got something there. I'm not moving the needle often enough. I mean, your habits aren't efforts of impact. Your habits are like, I checked the box, I did the text, I did the email, I made the call, I made my contacts, I drank my protein, I had the water. You did the stuff, but how much of it moved it, right?
Yeah, it's so easy. So it's like, start with what I said first about that hour a day of distraction. And I always tell people, if I could get you 3 more months of advancement this year, would that make a difference? They go, oh my God, yeah, 3 more months. I go, great, that's an hour a day. 1 hour a day, 7 hours a week, right? Over the course of the month, that's 30 hours. That's basically a whole work week, really. And then apply that by 12 months. It's like, we just got you 12 work weeks back for 1 hour a day. So we're not asking for a lot. And then the joy is, I thought it was the 80-20 Pareto principle. It's like, oh, like 80% of the time I gotta be I be Superman 80%. No, you don't even be Superman 80%. Try 60.
It's so good.
It's nice.
That's what the data shows.
The data shows this is 60-40. I was like, oh, that's a relief, because I was wondering, all these other people, because you think all these successful people, they've got a million assistants running around doing everything. And
you're right. I tell my kids all the time. I tell them since they were little. So when you grow up a little bit, you're going to find out. Everyone says winning is hard. Okay, I get all that. Well, I tell my kids all the time, even once you get into college, you're going to figure out you're not competing against that many people. You're really only in life competing against yourself, but you know what I mean when I say that. And now that they're there, they're like, Dad, you're right. Like, some kids don't even go to class every day. Some kids don't study at all some day. I'm like, you're going to figure it out that it's a very small group of people that do things in their life that are efforts of impact on a very regular basis. Life, if you want to change your life right now, it is really possible. You could really do it.
Really possible.
You really could do it. Is there anything else you want to add to it? Because I feel like I interrupted you on that. Is there any other area of high performance people? I know there's a bunch, but give us one more.
Practices of self-awareness. This is why everyone loves Growth Day. And I didn't know, I knew it would be powerful. I didn't know it would be this powerful at all. We want to make the world's #1 mindset journal. So that's in Growth Day. We want to make the world's #1 habit tracker. So you can track your high performance habits and other well-being and achievement habits in the app. And then it gives you recommendations. We built in the goal setting tool with reminders, so you can remind yourself and push notifications to yourself to meditate, to work out, to flirt with your wife, all this stuff. And those were just coming from the research, and also high performers just telling us what they do. They journal, they meditate, they pray, they think. They're doing more practices of self-awareness to figure out themselves. Like a lot of people go to the gym, but a high performer go to the gym and you say, what are you thinking about at the gym? Man, I'm thinking about my goals. Man, I'm thinking about that deal. Man, I'm thinking about that date night with my wife this Friday. Oh, yeah. Right. They're in a different, they're using their time. Some people hate driving. They hate a car trip. Other people, they're like, oh man, that's my lab. Put me in that car. I'm going to drive. I'm going to think about the next dream, the next vision, the next sale.
I do.
Right?
I love driving.
That's practices of self-awareness. You are thinking, right? I think, therefore I am. You know, this time that they spend ruminating, thinking, envisioning, and brainstorming, it's significantly bigger than the average person. And so in growth, they said, we're going to build the tools to enable that. And that became the most popular thing in there. I thought the most popular thing would be we've got the biggest motivational speakers. These guys charge $50,000, $100,000 a speech. You know, Mel Robbins and Jenna Kutcher, lots of our friends in there teaching. And they're popular, and people love that because we're live every week with them. But it's the tools. People love to think about their life, and they love to track it, and they love to look how to improve it. And that's the high performance edge. The ultimate performance edge isn't talent, right? It's how much does that person think about improving that thing? It's the practices of growth, right? The great Olympians who you work with and I work with, the people who are, the highest level CEOs, and they're thinking.
You're right.
They're thinking, and they're thinking about growth. They're thinking about success. They're thinking about impact, instead of thinking about what she wear at that dinner last night. Did you see her on that internet? Did you see what he does? Do you hear what they're doing? Oh, those people over there, and the left and the right. There's a difference. Are you thinking growth, or are you thinking gossip? We just changed your life.
My gosh, brother, this is so good. You know what's funny? It's the absence of things in your life you're unaware of, but like you just described me, I don't ever spend any time on that stuff. I mean, literally less than 1/1,000,000th of 1% of the time.
Me too.
And I'm addicted. I have an addiction to thinking about growth. I have an addiction to thinking about that next scene, that next emotion, that next thing. I literally am addicted to it. I actually love shutting the car door alone. So I'm like, all right, here we go, brother.
It's your lab.
I love that. I love working out for that reason. I love taking a walk on the beach for that reason. I love it. I actually love the end of my day. I love getting into bed at the end of the day and just reflecting on the day and then dreaming about the next day. Like, I love that stuff, right? I don't always love waking up because you're in a different brainwave state at that time. But I love when I go to bed at night and dreaming, and you're right on the money, man, with that stuff. Okay.
And you have practices that force you to do that, right?
Yes.
You go to the gym and you're thinking about those things. Some people pray, or they meditate, or they journal. Yeah. And that's where you have to put yourself in that place to open the gate, or to what I always say, to be able to receive.
Yes.
Like if you're filling your brain with a bunch of stuff that you're downloading from social media, then who can't download into you?
Gosh, it's so
God
good,
can't
man.
get in, right? You block the antenna with a bunch of gossip and a bunch of garbage.
Yep.
You got to stay in an open state. Where are you in an open state? You're in an open state in a seminar, in a conference. You're in an open state when you're driving. You're in an open state in the shower. You're in an open state in bed. You're in an open state at the gym. You got to stay in that open state so that you can receive guidance as much as you also can envision it. Because some of the best ideas might not even come from anything you and I just said, but because someone is listening to this podcast right now, they're in an open reception. And that open reception, all of a sudden, they've got that new business idea. They're like, where'd that come from? You were in a learning environment. You were in a self-awareness practice. That's what podcast listening really is when it's good. And ideas come to you. I listen to your podcast almost every day that I work at it.
Thank you.
And when I'm listening to it, I get all these crazy ideas. It didn't come from what you said or the guest.
Right, it's uncorrelated.
I
You're
was
open.
in a place of openness, of self-awareness. And so if you want to become a high performer, you have to place yourself there. You have to do the thinking, the rumination, the dreaming, the visioning. And when you do that time and time and time and time again, it becomes who you are. You don't have to force it anymore. It just becomes who you are.
That's brilliant, by the way. One of my favorite things at the end of the day, actually my favorite thing, is my prayer time. And I do it on my knees. And I have just people say to me all the time, is it a lot like when you're really tired of that? No, I actually really look forward to that time, because sometimes my prayers are 4 minutes and sometimes they're 45 minutes, depending on how open I am, what I'm receiving, what I'm getting. I've loved today, and I got one more question for you. By the way, everybody, make sure you go to growthday.com or go to the Growth Day app and get it. You will thank me. I think the most important high performance emotion should be love or happiness. You said, did I live, did I love, did I matter? Why? I've always wanted to ask you this, and I wanted to wait for today. We were at that dinner the other night. I almost asked the table this question. We had a great dinner with you, Ben Newman, John Gordon, Erwin McManus, Jamie Kern-Lima, Pete Vargas, Erica, my sister. We had a great dinner. And if I forgot somebody, I apologize. But I almost asked the table this, and I thought, no. John Gordon. I think I said John, but absolutely John was there, and Catherine, his wife. Why aren't more people happy? And I know this is the end of the show, and my prayer is that everybody stayed to the end. But I'm just curious, I know this is a crazy question, but one of the speakers that night asked a question. I don't know what to talk about tomorrow. And I said, just remember this. Most people are coming to this event in some form of pain. They're hurting. And it breaks my heart that I actually know that to be true. But I do know that to be true. It's one of the things that I'm always very cognizant of when I speak, is that there's a lot of people in here in some pain. And I'd like to make a dent in that in the universe, you know? So I'm curious with the brilliant people, and you are brilliant, that I know, why you think more people aren't happy, and what could one do to just begin the journey of loving, living, and mattering more and being happier?
Oh, I love that. I think let's begin with, most people don't know what happiness is or where they get it. You know, I taught this at your event. It's a simple framework. It's like, draw out a triangle. For those who are listening, draw out a little triangle, and on each of the points I'll tell you what happiness is. Like, the human desire and striving is, we want a sense of aliveness. So you need to do more things that make you alive, make you vibrant, authentic, expressive, make you sense.
An example of that would be, give me
For
one.
some people, it's adventure. Go mountain biking.
Okay.
It's like, wow, that just brought me back to life. You know, some people it's hanging out with great friends. Some people it's doing their passion. Some people it's you know, just honestly feeling and sensing the moment and meditating. Another thing that everyone wants is connection. Most people today lack the depth of happiness because they thought, I love what you said earlier, the difference between you and maybe Tony is that you really believe in the environment. And most people lack a connection with other people. They are surface level relationships. You can't be really happy long term with surface level relationships. So you got to find out, how do I connect more deeply? And it can be simple things like you talked about. You know, with the kids, maybe less than texting, call them. Have that moment of connection. It's nothing crazy, but that's what you're striving for. You want happiness with your kids, you're going to call them. You're going to connect with them. So think about connection, relationships, a level of depth. Then we want meaningful pursuits. When I go after that, I love that pursuit. And notice it doesn't say meaning. A lot of people just say meaning. I said, no, it's meaningful pursuits. Because a lot of people we know who are really successful, they've already had a meaningful life. They're miserable because they're not pursuing anything anymore.
Gosh, Brennan, that's so true.
You got that. You got to have that pursuit, man.
Yeah.
You got to find a pursuit. It has meaning to you. It brings you back to life. That's happiness. And then the middle of the triangle is the capital G, growth. If you don't have aliveness, you don't have connection, you don't have meaningful pursuits, and you don't have growth, you're miserable. We can bank on it. We can guarantee it. The research will reveal it every single time. But if we can get you a little bit more alive, a little bit more connected, a little bit more meaningful pursuits, and a little bit more growth, those like little bit in each of those, it's like a thunderous shift in your life. You're just like, whoa, little bits in those. But there's an access point. Why aren't most people happy? Let's say they did all those things. Still not happy? Then they're just not here. Presence is the gateway to happiness. If I can't get you present, to feel it, to sense it, can't change. What most people want like what they really want, all the people I work with, maybe the people you work with, what they really want, they'll never say it, and they'll almost never know it. What almost every human being wants is they want to feel the day more. They got all these activities, they're blazing through. Get the kids to school, get this off to there, get that done, answer that email, get this project. And even if they're moving towards things they find meaningful and they're awesome, but if they don't feel it, if they're literally not present, they're not mindful enough to sense it, to appreciate it, to feel grateful, to feel the joy, to feel the ups, to feel the downs, to feel the miseries, to feel the wins. If you aren't feeling the day, you're just blazing through as an automaton. You're just blazing through the days, on autopilot. You're just like overwhelmed, stressed, going through it, but you don't feel the day. I can't get you to be happy. So the gateway to all of happiness is always presence. Learn to be more present in the moment. Feel the moment. Even the bad ones, you got to feel the day more so that when you get on your knees at night to pray, you felt the day. Dear God, thank you. I felt this day. I felt those lessons you gave me. I felt those gifts you gave me. Thank you for that connection. See, when you talk to God, if you don't feel, there's not a relationship. God wants you to feel. It's the unique thing He gave us. Not just the emotional reaction of an animal, but the ability to deeply appreciate feeling. Very human. So we've got to tap people back in the present to deeply appreciate the moments, the feelings, the events of life again. And I think that's why I'm so happy. It's like I feel so much. Most people are so scared of that. I love it. It makes me feel alive, right? How do you sense more aliveness? You got to feel the day, feel the moment.
Right. Oh, I love you, brother. That's so good. I'm just thinking what you said. I'm thinking, why did I just love this hour so much? One, I had tremendous aliveness, right? Deep connection to you.
Yeah.
I know this was a meaningful pursuit we did. I know both of us grew and we helped other people grow, and I was fully present.
Yes.
You're 100% right, brother. You're so awesome. Thank you for today.
Thank you.
I just
This
knew.
is such a gift. I knew if you got there.
I knew.
People don't know we didn't really plan out this day.
Not at all.
It was
No.
just like,
which is highly unusual for both of us, right?
I'm so excited just to be here.
Yeah,
I
I'm
appreciate
so excited,
it.
and I love you, and I'm so excited about Growth Day, you guys. Do 3 things for me today, okay? You already follow Brendan, but if you don't, make sure you follow him. That's not one of the things, because you should just be doing that. And you follow me, or you wouldn't be hearing this. Go get involved with Growth Day, number 1. Go get the power of one more, and go check out my show Change with Ed Milet on Nosy or YouTube. We need more people seeing that so that it can continue. And today was, it flew by. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, we've already been doing this for an hour. That blows my mind. Wow. So thank you, brother. I love you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. God bless you. Max out your life.
Bank.
On Dr. Peter McCullough's staggering. So,
then if you're never within 6 feet of any single individual, then you've controlled the virus.
We're asking the young people to help us with this mitigation strategy by staying out of the bars, staying out of the restaurants, really trying to distance yourself. Don't get the attitude, well, I'm young, I'm invulnerable.
Do you realize that social distancing was never grounded in science? Never. It was all made up.
Single costliest recommendation that CDC made, that you had to maintain 6 feet of distance, that wasn't based on good judgment and good science.
They were wrong about the vaccines stopping transmission, too.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
Whoops, false. Most Americans thought the vaccine would stop you from getting COVID altogether. Well, of course, we know that was wrong. You also could transmit the virus if you had the vaccine. The CDC Director Walensky has been vaxxed and boosted, I think, a total of, 5 times? And she has COVID again. They were wrong to dismiss natural immunity as well. It turns out acquired immunity through previous infection does, in fact, provide durable immunity from future infection, and it certainly lessens your symptoms if you get it again. And do you remember what CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta and the rest of the medical cartel had Americans doing?
But we do know the virus can live on surfaces, for example, steel and plastic for up to 3 days. I've used a little glitter here for my kids to show you what the virus might be like. I'm just going to clean all the virus off here. Don't need to do too much. It's a pretty sensitive virus. You don't need to use any kind of specific wipe either. Any household cleaner will do.
Okay, I forgot that one. A few weeks later, CNN had to explain that no, you don't actually need to wipe down your box of spaghetti or leave your Amazon packages in the garage. How embarrassing. But these people were drunk on their own power. Anthony Fauci even wanted to control your holiday plans.
If you get vaccinated and your family's vaccinated, you can feel good about enjoying a typical Thanksgiving, Christmas with your family and close friends.
You've got to be careful when you go into large public indoor spaces where there are a lot of people there, and that's the reason why you should be wearing a mask under those circumstances. I mean, obvious, the N95 is the best, but a regular surgical mask as well as a cloth mask is fine.
Wait a second. It's fine? Is he talking about those filthy masks hanging on everyone's rearview mirrors? The masks that they grabbed before they dashed into a store? Perhaps the worst part of all of this was the vicious campaign to smear and deplatform anyone who questioned their pronouncements, including world-renowned doctors and researchers. Remember the Great Barrington Declaration? From our top academic institutions, they even blacklisted people. These people have been threatened and excommunicated by medical associations and, of course, social media platforms. And despite how wrong the so-called experts were on a myriad issues, the retribution against dissident doctors continues to this day in the name of protecting public health and combating the spread of dangerous disinformation. How ironic, since they're the worst purveyors of it of all. Famed cardiologist and member of my medicine cabinet, Peter McCullough, could even lose his board certification for what he said over the last 2+ years. He told MedPage that he's appealing the recommendation by the American Board of Internal Medicine, and he's persecuted for stating the truth that the government was playing with math on the virus's true lethality. That was another issue of his. Well, now we see that he and others who spoke about the lethality of the virus were right. A new analysis of COVID deaths shows that early on, before vaccines were available, the infection fatality rate for people younger than the age of 70 was below 1%. And for those under the age of 19, it was 0.0003%. Now, given the analysis we just read, it's less lethal than the flu to a majority of the population. That is stunning. So-called public health officials duped America.
All right, Doc. So you wanted to play that. I'm glad we played that. But quite frankly, Laura Ingraham does a great job. It's a lot of courage. But the examples she used are nothing compared to sending people sick with COVID into nursing homes and putting them on ventilators, but then not letting families go see their loved ones, and just all the other lies that we were told. It's just staggering. Or if you have the shot, you can't spread COVID. I mean, it's just, but then everything you said has been proven right, so that's why you're being targeted. So it's like they gave Obama, who launched all these wars, a peace prize. So it turns the Nobel Peace Prize into a joke. So instead of getting a peace prize now, when these guys come after you, that's like winning the Oscar.
Yo, what's up, Dick? I swear to God, I was thinking about you when he said 0.0003. I don't know why. I think it was just the delivery, the dry sarcasm in her voice.
They want amnesty for all their lies and corruption and debt they've caused, but then they're still trying to target people that force the truth out. You won. We won. People now know. Almost no one's taking these dangerous shots, and so now they want to retroactively come back and quietly punish doctors so other doctors in the future, when they try it again, don't speak up.
Well, let's pick a couple examples, Alex, even before the vaccines. First one, remdesivir, the intravenous polymerase inhibitor. By November of 2020, the World Health Organization declares, do not use remdesivir in hospitalized COVID-19 patients because it doesn't reduce mortality and it causes complications like kidney damage and liver damage. This is an obvious example. So when our Department of Health and Human Services and Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services gives enhanced reimbursement to American hospitals to encourage the use of remdesivir when it shouldn't be used, is a clear example. The World Health Organization followed up with an analysis in May of 2022 in The Lancet and confirmed they were right back in November of 2020. Remdesivir should have never been used. That is a clear-cut example. I'll give you another one. October 4th, 2020, as Laura Ingraham points out, the Great Barrington Declaration is published by Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford, Martin Kulldorff from Harvard, Sunitra Gupta from Oxford. It's signed by nearly 1 million scientists and people in my circles, saying that we should only take special protective measures for our seniors and high-risk individuals. The rest of society go on normally. No lockdowns, no changes with schools, no changes.
And that's staggering. So 1 million doctors and scientists and healthcare providers go and do this. It's totally ignored. And then now they're trying to take your license for joining 1 million people with the truth.
In fact, not only was it ignored, but later on, NIAID Director Anthony Fauci directly attacks Jay Bhattacharya, who's a frequent contributor on Fox News, as I am, for crafting the Great Barrington Declaration. And you're right, now there's the hunting of doctors who have come out and tried to help their patients directly in their practices by treating patients and also bringing America the truth. What happened for me was the American Board of Internal Medicine, which its only role is to certify and accredit my residency and fellowship training. So I completed residency for 3 years in medicine and 3 years cardiology fellowship. They are a standard by which they indicate that I've completed the criteria and that I have passed examinations for internal medicine. I've passed 4 life and career determining internal medicine examinations.
So how do they then punish you by going back decades to pull tests you passed? That's like saying we're going to pull your college degree.
No, listen, I met all the clinical criteria for internal medicine, 4 sets of exams through 4 decades now of practice, and cardiology, 3 sets of exams. So my clinical track record is perfect. The ABIM.
That's like taking somebody's driver's license when they have a perfect driving record.
Right. So anyhow, so I have the clinical. Complete clinical dossier as a highly qualified doctor. It's untouchable. What the ABIM does, Alex, in September of 2021, they declare that they are going to have a COVID misinformation campaign that they announced. They never define what information or misinformation is. They don't offer any teaching modules.
And that's run by the secret DHS Disinformation Governance Board that it says specifically, Intercept this week, targets doctors that question the official narrative. Right here, ladies and gentlemen.
Almost certainly, these government agencies directly started to work with the Federation of State Medical Boards, the various accrediting bodies like the American Board of Internal Medicine. But listen to this, Alex. And so in September, they declare this campaign without giving doctors any type of guidance of what they can do or can't do. Then for me, they go back in time, ex post facto, to March of 2021 in my Senate testimony in the Texas Senate, where under oath, I'm giving my best estimates of what is going on in the pandemic. I'm using standard CDC equations. I'm answering questions for the Committee on Health and Human Services. And they take statements that I've made in the Texas Senate and they declare them misinformation. They put a letter out to me in May of 2022 saying this, among other things, we have declared as misinformation. They give me a chance to respond. I generate a tremendous response document. As Americans have grown to know me, I cite every single piece of information. I do not freewheel or guess on anything. Everything is completely factual. I give this response letter back to the American Board of Internal Medicine. I just received a letter October 19th, 2022, stating, we don't think anything you said, Dr. McCullough, is compelling, so therefore we've convicted you of misinformation, and we are recommending that your entire residency and fellowship are stripped, your board certifications are stripped from you, basically, essentially taking 6 years of my life away. And
by the way, California is trying to pass a law under Newsom that if their government board says something disinfo, like vitamin D3 protects you a lot from viruses, you will be stripped as well. So it doesn't matter what your real medical training says. If you don't follow the corporate announcement as a doctor, we're going to strip you.
California AB 2098 has actually been signed into law by Gavin Newsom. It's not in effect yet until January of 2023. There, the California Medical Board, again, declaring misinformation and information, but without giving any guidance of what it is, no teaching modules, no guidance.
No, it's a magic wand.
Yeah.
It's just whatever we say, but again, you're being punished for being accurate. I know you don't want to do a victory lap, but look at your record of what you wrote and what you said as a well-known doctor and also a guy that done a lot of clinical trials and run government research programs, where you were right. If anything, I think you underestimated how bad the experimental shots were. If you were wrong in any way, it was underestimating how bad it was.
Yeah, I held myself out as being a reasonable doctor in the exam room with patients. The same way I carry myself with patients in my practice is the way I carried myself before the public through 2 sets of extensive U.S. Senate testimony, 2 sets of Texas Senate testimony, multiple other states, innumerable high-level media interviews. And when I was wrong or learned new details about the pandemic, I quickly acknowledged it and updated the information database. I'll give you an example.
That's how science works. It's a process.
Yes, I'll give you an example. I went to Joe Rogan's studio in December of 2022, and this is before the Omicron outbreak, and I was convinced that 2021, right, thank you, that the natural immunity was holding out. And it was like 2 days later the news broke that actually Omicron broke through the natural immunity. I went on national TV that night and I said, listen, this is an update. Watch out, you really can get COVID multiple times. Omicron broke through. And quickly, the Joe Rogan audience, were messaging me. They quickly said, okay, we understand Dr. McCullough is fair and reasonable. And that's how people have characterized me. But this relentless pursuit of me as a public figure now, who has basically, as a doctor and doctors in my circle, worked to save as many lives as possible, worked globally to bring truthful information forward on the pandemic. This is part of the overall government operation.
And we talked before we went on air about, you've done the deep dive, and so have we. It's on record. DARPA is pushing the mRNA. It's not a vaccine. They're using Pfizer and Moderna as front groups. Even Gates is a front group. I want to start getting into some of the mechanics of that and where you see all this going, because we can see them warming up for a new virus, a new push. And as you said, this is a military weapon being used against the people.
To set the understanding here, so the National Institutes of Health has had a long-standing interest in biological threats to populations, and the division dealing with this is called BARDA. I've chaired Data Safety Monitoring Board in the past for BARDA on a program, so I'm very familiar with it. On the military side, the research organization is DARPA. And these two work in concert to identify and work on biological threats and work on answers, like vaccines, monoclonal antibodies, drugs, other things that can be done, largely to protect the military, but there has been an interest in the public in large. Now, on the DARPA website is a program called the ADEPT P3 program.
The ADEPT?
P3, ADEPT P3 program on their website. And in that program, for many years now, they have described that DARPA is working with messenger RNA. And in one of their prospectuses, they actually, for the US government, they have a figure where they declare that they can use messenger RNA technology to end a pandemic within 60 days. And this was sold to American military, government leaders that messenger RNA was going to be the future approach for many years. So this was long before we heard about Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca. The messenger RNA was actually part of government interests from a military biological research perspective.
And I remember videos from 2017 with Fauci and others on C-SPAN. They were saying, we've got all this mRNA, it's going to cure everything, but we've got to blow up the old approval system that takes 5-10 years first, and maybe a virus out of China will allow us to do that.
Okay,
that's a chilling video.
You picked up an important point. So the key here was to have a global and national emergencies, and note that our current President Biden has extended this recently again, the never-ending emergency. As long as an emergency is declared, emergency use authorization and emergency countermeasures are enabled. This is very important. Under emergency use authorization, it's actually debatable whether or not FDA approval is even needed. In many ways, the FDA, in their pronouncements on the vaccines, are theater. This largely theater. CDC.
Well, that was the report I saw Friday, which, guys, I put in the conference room, and I forgot to get out of the big stack from Friday. I didn't cover it. But I remember the headline. It was like linked to the Daily Mail. The headline was, National Security Council had already developed a secret plan implemented for COVID and was in full control under national emergency. The point is, we already know that. It's just what you're saying is this was all pre-programmed and ready.
It was pre-programmed and ready, and when the vaccines rolled out, the very initial document that was presented to the public was signed by Alex Azar, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Defense. HHS and DOD. So we really just need the Secretary of the Health and Human Services to sign off on this. This is a necessary measure. And then the military to go ahead and carry this out. On my podcast this weekend, playing today and tomorrow, I interview Sasha Latypova, who is a vaccine and pharmaceutical expert. She's an investigative journalist now. And we do a deep dive into this, Alex. The vaccines are largely produced by military contractors. That Pfizer and Moderna and the other companies, they're basically shields. They're some type of, like a figurehead, if you will, of what's going on. But importantly, the final fill and finish, that is pouring the vials of the vaccine, that's done by defense contractors. Under EUA, Alex, there's no inspection for safety, purity, or for quality.
And now they're targeting 6-month-olds and up, only country in the world doing it. Give us 35,000-foot view. Then I want to get back into this amnesty. We have another clip from Del Bigtree. It's very important to get to. You don't speculate. You've just stuck to the facts. But privately, we've talked about this going back a year ago and now, before we went on air today. I mean, big picture, this is very cold-blooded. They know these shots are hurting people. They're trying to cover it up, and they're still trying to make our troops take it. Obviously, the average person in the military is a great person, but when we talk about defense contractors, this is just the biggest budget we have, and it's a lot of special interests that are in control of the Defense Department that are doing this. Obviously, they know what they're doing, hitting us with what I would call as a weapon, and then after we get back into them wanting amnesty, you got to play that clip. I want to talk about the motives for rolling something out that hurts and kills as many people. How do they think they're going to get away with it?
How could governments conduct operations against their own people worldwide? And you can see this fraction of response country by country. Americans know something is wrong. Let me give you some important data points. The Zogby survey company, a reliable survey company, did a survey of Americans, found that 2/3 had taken a COVID vaccine. Of those, 15% have some new medical problem that they're seeing a doctor for. 85% are fine. Sasha Latypova on my podcast this weekend on McCullough Report indicates that those who are fine probably have gotten relatively inert shots of degraded messenger RNA or low concentration messenger RNA. Those who are injured are getting what's called hot lots. We know that 35% of the deaths with, 80% of the deaths with Pfizer and 35% of the lots, 80% of the deaths with Moderna are within 20% of the lots. And Americans know from that perspective that people are talking to other people. A survey from Michigan State, Ditmore and colleagues, 22% of Americans know somebody who's been injured or died after a vaccine. So we don't need social media, Alex. We don't need major media to broadcast this message. People are talking to one another. If the camera will get on my screen right now, I am on the CDC website, the COVID data tracker, and notice on the right corner here, vaccinations. This is the percent of individuals over age 5 with an updated booster dose. Answer, 8.4%. These boosters, the bivalent boosters, which are still 50% of the original legacy vaccine, which is obsolete, and 50% of the Omicron BA4, BA5 subvariant, the homologous epitope of those, that vaccine had no human data. There were no clinical trials. It was tested in a small number of mice. It failed in stopping the infection, and there was a false rise in the antibodies, a false surrogate, if you will. And so importantly, that is, I think, prima facie evidence that the FDA actually doesn't need to approve these. They don't need to apply any standards. It's also evidence that the FDA has no power to pull these off the market or tell any of the companies through the DOD and the manufacturers to pull these off this market. Essentially, this is a freight train moving forward on the American people. The only thing that will stop this is people rejecting it, and right now we're at 92% of Americans are rejecting any more vaccination.
Let's talk about, there's so much to hit here, but let's talk about real numbers. We hear about insurance actuaries. We see a lot of other prominent doctors coming out and saying we're seeing a lot of extra deaths, these weird blood clots, all sorts of autoimmune problems, myocarditis, heart attacks. I mean, there's record level deaths happening. But the numbers you've seen, with the sudden death syndrome they're talking about, how do we quantify that? What's the real numbers there?
Let's go to the openvaers.com data overlay. That's on my screen right now.
Oh, you got it up.
This is not disputed. This is a weekly update of code written against, and it queries the CDC database. Now, VAERS includes domestic, U.S., and then some ex-U.S. sources that get reported in through pharma and then go in here, including Japan and Germany. So the overall numbers, 31,696, astronomical number of deaths. But let's zero in on Americans. So we toggle this button here at the top, toggle over. Now these American numbers. 14,920 as of October 21st. These are deaths. Now let's look at where they occur. If we take 96 hours or at 4 days, the vast majority of the deaths occur within 4 days of people taking the shot. We know from an analysis by McLachlan and colleagues who's dying? Our seniors. Our senior citizens are dying at an astronomical rate after taking the vaccines, and it's relatively silent. It's happening in our nursing homes, happening in independent living.
It's not just statistics. We see it in the news. My mom took it, my dad took it, my daughter took it, my husband took it, my wife, and then they're dead in 3-4 days.
Absolutely.
Same story over and over again.
And look at here. Look at the number. 70,633 Americans hospitalized, 105,040 urgent care visits. We know from the ICANN data that from the vSafe data, you can pull this up if you can find it on the ICANN website. That's an NGO. Through legal action, lead attorney Aaron Siri prosecuted the CDC and said we must see the vSafe data. vSafe is what people can report on their cell phones after they take the vaccine and what happens to them. The CDC wanted to block release of this important source of data to Americans. Finally, Siri and ICANN get it, and it's a bombshell. Aaron Siri went on Fox News that night when it broke a few weeks ago. This is what we've learned, Alex. 25% of people who take the vaccine are incapacitated the next day. They can't go to work or school. 7 to 8% of them are so sick they end up in the hospital or worse.
And I've seen, whether it's in the UK or here, when they die of it, they call it a COVID.
Well, it's been the attribution of death to the vaccine has been a consistent problem. Let's talk about it. Jessica Rose, a very, very well-respected epidemiologist, estimates for death that the underreporting factor is about 31. We know from a prior Harvard study in 2018 from VAERS before COVID, it could be as much as 100-fold underreported. So think about 100-fold. That's 1.4 million people. 31-fold underreported would be somewhere around 500 to 600,000 individuals.
Just in the U.S.
Just in the U.S. Now, the World Council for Health, an international organization, an umbrella organization for about 70 individual organizations, June 11th of 2022, issues a pharmacovigilance report, not only just on VAERS, but on the UK Yellow Card, the EU UDRIS system, and the WHO VigiSafe system, and they declare vaccines are unfit for human use, pull them off the market. They had stern warnings. I give credit to a French lab, actually, in March of 2021. They were the first ones to say, listen, in March, pull these off the market. I was on a paper with Bruno and colleagues, May of 2021, 57 authors, 17 countries, where we declare, we put it to every single government in the world, and we said, we have serious safety concerns. If this can't be rectified immediately, pull them off the market. So I can tell you, Alex, we were within a few months, as you pointed out, we were all neutral to the vaccines, which we should be at first. But once things started to turn bad, looking backwards, knowing that Pfizer knew about 1,223 deaths within 90 days of release of their vaccine, looking backwards, a responsible FDA and Pfizer should have pulled Pfizer off the market before February 1st of 2021, and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson never should have come out.
And now they've got a tiger by the tail, so they're paradoxically trying to persecute you and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny and others who've been vindicated and don't want to be superstars, but are people realizing you were so dead on. separately going, give us amnesty. We're sorry we lied to you. We're sorry everything was fake. We're sorry the CDC's own document, October 2000, predicted all this. It's another question. How did they know that? Well, the first people to do it was the government warning of it. I guess it was whistleblowers inside, maybe. So what do you make of this paradox where you're being persecuted even though you're vindicated? The system's been caught lying at every level. What does that quantify, and what do you think they're going to do next? Because I think it's fair to say, maybe you disagree, this has blown up in their face spectacularly, and it has woken up more people across the political spectrum worldwide than any issue ever, and it's not going away. And as we see continued shockwaves from the shots and what's happening, they got a tiger by the tail.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the evidence that I've shared with you. Despite a massive 2-year campaign of incessant ads, public health messaging, complete censorship and distortion of social media through Twitter and Facebook, press briefings, corporate mandates, school mandates, military mandates. Look at the data on my screen. 92% of Americans are saying no more. I mean, this is astonishing. It's blown up in their face. You know what's really happened too is that the Band-Aid has been ripped off the entire vaccine agenda, Alex. And this is now doctors like myself are re-examining the whole rationale for, when I was born, there were 3 vaccines. 3. A child today now faces something like 72 injections. Do you know that children at the day they're born are given hepatitis B antigen vaccine, that 1-year-olds are given influenza vaccine? People are starting to question this aggressive vaccination schedule, actually vaccinating for easily treatable illnesses like bacterial infections like diphtheria and pertussis. People are starting to question the whole thing. I'm talking to more and more parents that say, you know what, we've lost our trust in vaccines overall.
Well, remember back in late 2019, they had an emergency meeting of the UN regulators in Switzerland. And it was like a 2-day meeting. It was 16 hours. We watched it here. We ended up playing about 2 hours of it on air. And they went down the whole row of scientists, including the chief vaccine advisor. They said, look, even our own scientists and frontline doctors don't want to give it anymore. We're giving too many. We don't do any testing. These are quotes. We're given what Big Pharma tells us, and that's being made by the Defense Department in the U.S. They even said that. And we just give it to people. And then it hurts a bunch of people. And the villagers don't trust us. The rural populations, these urban populations, the educated populations, we've got a crisis. And they went on to say, we're about to see total confidence loss in the vaccine program, which we believe done properly and executed correctly for real threats is a real science. They said, we've got to, and then boom, COVID comes in. I'm sure you've seen those clips, but even the UN's own head regulatory board is hitting the panic button going, and then boom, COVID comes in.
That's true. The confidence was eroding. You know, a landmark year was 1986 when the vaccine injury indemnification program came through for the manufacturers. People were already starting to get concerns that this whole vaccine agenda was getting out of control. And there are rare side effects, but there was a growing trend at that time to understand that some neuropsychiatric syndromes, such as Asperger's disease and others, could be related as an idiosyncratic reaction to vaccines. I remember famed Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who came forward and brought this concern. With any product, it's fair and reasonable to be concerned. Doctors who come forward should not be crushed. And what's happened over time, this is before COVID.
The science is about questions.
Yeah, we're asking questions, but this is about vaccines and the history of vaccines not being questioned and not being allowed to have any discourse. This is before COVID. Dr. Paul Thomas in Oregon starts to feel uncomfortable with how this whole vaccine agenda is rolling out through the, over the decades. And he declares in his pediatric practice that the parents can decide what vaccines the children get, as opposed to following this authoritative schedule. And the Oregon Medical Board gets wind of this. They pull his license. They said, you can't practice. He goes, listen, I'm giving people freedom of choice. And you know what Paul did in the time where he was basically out of medicine? He commissioned a study of his patients, half of whom took all the vaccines, half of them didn't. And the ones who didn't take the vaccines, the children, they were healthier. They had lower rates of all types of disorders, asthma, urticaria, various forms of hay fever, Asperger's, and other neuropsychiatric.
It's definitely linked, isn't it, to allergies increasing?
The Thomas data, I think, are very compelling. It's one of the few controlled data sets that we can look at. The vaccines have rolled out, and this has been a big issue with the ICANN group led by Del Bigtree and others, is that vaccines have come out unquestioned without adequate randomized placebo-controlled trials, and there's just been an assumption that they're safe and effective.
So as a layperson, what I see is this. You got the military-industrial complex, people getting rich off of it, big pharma, the politicians, people that want a magic bullet, the general public, take any drug that they put on the market, and we've seen the carnage that's caused by that. And now, as opposition mounted, they said, let's give them the miracle mRNA, and let's show them how magic it is, and let's forget all the attacks what we did previously with this great miracle that'll make everybody love us, and then it's 10 times worse. That, I think, is the schmuckish view, because I get the average person that works in the medical system cares and loves people, so they can't believe there's other evil people above them. But if we know, in so many of the 20 years, the trials they've done with mRNA, that it works a lot of the time, but part of the time kills you or maims you or liquefies your liver, then they obviously weren't stupid and done mice studies and others and knew this was going to have some big, big problems. And so you're smart, I'm smart. Obviously, the folks that run things aren't stupid. Doctor, do you think they were just mistaken, or at a higher level, is there some organized evil here?
There is a continued love affair and pursuit of messenger RNA. Now, messenger RNA, remember, is the genetic code for part of a virus or an organism. It has nucleoside analog caps at the 3' and 5' end. Means they're indestructible. A paper from Stanford by Rolkin and colleagues has proven
you can spray them on people.
That it's indestructible.
Remember the Pentagon report they want to do in China? They wanted to spray the caves with it.
The body doesn't break this stuff down. This stuff is indestructible. So every shot is permanent in the human body now. We have very good understanding.
But can it be aerosolized too?
But there are attempts to do this. I'm not an expert in all the routes of administration, but a review paper that's summarized in my Substack this morning has indicated that the history of this is not good. Messenger RNA vaccine for HIV completely failed, caused way too much inflammation and side effects. Now we had COVID-19 vaccines have just been a disaster. And guess what's coming? mRNA vaccines for influenza. And both Pfizer
and cancer.
And Pfizer and Moderna have announced these, and it's going to be combined with the bivalent COVID booster. NTD News yesterday.
Let's hear a record, Skip, as I interrupt you. Start over. I just saw it 2 days ago. They've gone, hey, since there's no approval anymore, we've got a new thing we're rolling out. So it's like the door's blown open, Pandora's box is open, and they just go, now we're going to, so you'll have a higher uptake, we're going to mix the new manipulation of mRNA for COVID with the influenza. So tell us what that means.
Yeah, you got that. So as long as the COVID is under emergency use authorization, and now there's a congener of the COVID-19 bivalent vaccine and a messenger RNA influenza vaccine, I imagine that Pfizer and Moderna are going to attempt to get this in under the EUA umbrella. So
it's a loophole for their influenza, their cancer, their anything. As long as they add COVID, we have emergency authorization.
Well, Alex, for a new genetic product, it needs 5 years of development observation. 5 years. They're talking about trying to put these together in a few months. NTD News had Professor David Weissman on, former J&J scientist, actually won many awards there. He made it clear this is going to be a complete disaster because side effects are going to be amplified. Now we're installing the genetic code not only for the COVID-19 lethal spike protein, but also dangerous parts of the influenza antigens. And people are going to get very sick, produce many abnormal proteins in the human body with no control over the duration or quantity.
And are proteins, abnormal proteins associated with spongiform and cephalopathy type diseases?
Well, absolutely. We know that abnormal proteins can fold, so they can become a prion-like and cause, mad cow, various forms of spongiform encephalopathies in theory. We also know that they're amyloidogenic, the spike protein. Recent paper I've published with Stephanie Seneff has clearly shown this, that they're amyloidogenic, meaning they're rubbery, Alex. Amyloid, think about amyloid as a rubbery biologic substance. No surprise now, the spike protein has been found within blood clots of people who've taken the vaccine, and the morticians have been reporting this for a long time now. When someone dies, the blood is liquefied. It's called underglycolysis, and the morticians actually drain the body out of drain the blood out of the body.
And now they can. There's just all these giant.
Right. So that's the problem. They actually.
It's like noodles are being pulled out.
Right. So they're used to draining the body and then infusing the preservative in order to preserve the body. But now the blood doesn't drain, and so they had to dissect the vessels, and they're pulling out ginormous, rubbery. Long.
And again, it's only countries that have given these experimental shots, whether it's Germany, whether it's France, the UK, Canada, the US, they're seeing the exact same things.
I've had personal conversations with US mortuary.
So, Doctor, I know you did tell us, but what is that?
That is a cast of a blood vessel. They normally try to access the carotid artery, so that's probably the carotid artery. They access the blood vessels, and it's easier to access.
Yeah, he just pulled that out of a blood vessel.
Right, and there's ones, Alex. There, you can see them.
A foot long.
Oh yeah.
This is tame what they put up.
Right.
What the hell is that? This is like a science fiction movie.
It's like a science fiction movie, but let me tell you, in practice, I have patients who have developed blood clots, and they're alive, and they're large ones in their legs and extremities. And one patient in my practice, we've actually had to remove the first rib and actually physically pull it out of a blood vessel in the arm. Another one it's still in her leg now. It's over a year and it's not dissolving as I'm administering blood thinner.
As a normal blood thinner.
Right.
So what do we know what they're made of?
They are made of blood clotting elements loaded with the Wuhan spike protein, which causes folding, what's called amyloidogenic changes.
So your cells are producing spike proteins that then mix with the platelets, and then it's creating these quasi-synthetic clots.
That's correct.
Wow. I interrupted you though. I'm bad at that, but there's so many points. You were saying you're talking to the coroners.
Yeah, well, I had personal conversations with coroners on this to learn the process and is it objective. John O'Looney in the UK has just gone out. He's gone viral and he said, listen, this is going on, and he's describing what he's seen. Ryan Cole, pathologist in Idaho, examining these. I've recently published in the journal Neurologic Disorders with Stephanie Senoff and Tony Karagakos from Greece and Greg Nye. Clearly, the rationale for why this is happening. This explains why simultaneously there's neurodegenerative disease, that there is a blood clotting going on. In my practice in the last week, Alex, I saw 2 cases of blood clots forming 18 months after the last shot.
Wow.
18 months after the last shot. And what's going on is there's some intervening COVID. So getting the respiratory illness even further juices the system for more blood clotting. So in theory, the best would be get COVID, get early treatment, get little systemic exposure, never take a vaccine, and limit the blood clotting risk.
Yeah, I just saw a big study, it's in the stack here, where they looked at all the different countries, and the ones that didn't take the shots and didn't have lockdowns, they got over it very quickly. Those that didn't are still having problems.
Yeah, you'd want to be in Haiti or you'd want to be in Central Africa. You know, those countries simply just didn't have the resources in their treasuries to buy these vaccines. And they did great. Think about the living conditions in Haiti, and they've had virtually no COVID deaths, and they certainly have 0 vaccine deaths because they haven't given any vaccines.
So bottom line, this is almost like what's the term? Something that goes into a solution and causes a chain reaction, and then somehow the spike protein interfaces with the blood and gels it.
In a sense, like a catalyst. What we know is if the spike protein is physically in the clots, there was some studies actually before the vaccines showing spike protein alone could induce clotting in the absence of platelets, which is very interesting, meaning that fibrin and the other elements really seem to interact.
Doesn't even need your platelets to do it.
Right, and so the platelets do add on, and obviously in human being, the platelets add on to this. But this is a very unique blood clot. It's very unique. And the blood clotting that happens, it happens in areas where there's sluggish flow, like the venous drainage system in the brain, the portal vein in the abdomen. But a remarkable paper by Burhild and colleagues in JAMA from 3 Nordic countries. This is stunning, absolutely stunning. They described within 28 days of the vaccines, and they have Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, and they rule out any COVID. But in 3 small countries, Alex, 7,750 devastating neurologic strokes and blood clots. It's absolutely astonishing what these vaccines are doing on a population level.
I want to go ahead and not just air 3 minutes like you wanted to. It's so good, and Dale's good for us to air it. I want to just take a break and air. It's a 70-minute clip that's on your Rumble account. It's also over at Dale Bigtree's Highwire. It's excellent. But I want to air most of this clip where they're calling for amnesty, but they're not giving us amnesty. They're not paid for what they've done, and they're still targeting school children with this federal authorization, trying to make it mandatory in schools. So we'll talk about that with Dr. Peter McCullough on the other side, and we have a very important announcement as well on how people can get prepared to deal with this. We'll also get your latest analysis on how we can naturally try to bolster our defenses. That's all coming up. Please stay with us on the special Saturday transmission, and please share the live feed of this when we're streaming it out, and share the archive at band.video like our lives depend on it, because we can have Dr. Peter McCullough with his courage and him being attacked and all these other great people, and we can have this operation, this great crew. But if you, who are awesome, don't share it, it's like a tree falls in the forest, nobody heard it, so it didn't make a sound, okay? I mean, I cannot stress enough that everybody like, oh, Dr. McCullough, you're so great, or Alex, you're so good, or, no. Literally, it'd be like if I had a box of matches and trying to build a fire, a freezing cold. If I don't have kindling or wood to do it, we don't get the fire. Yes, this broadcast is the match. We have the evidence, got the match right over here. But we've got to have the kindling, and we got to have the logs to set this brush fire in the minds of people. So, literally, I don't want to just strike matches here in a 100-mile-an-hour wind. We get like 500,000 people tune in, live when we stream this. If all of you simply share the video from band.video, we'll get 5-10 million views. That'll be cut up, chain reaction, 100 million views, and we'll go break some more than the globalist ribs, okay? Because I'm not doing this to lose. I'm doing it to win. So we've got the truth. We're going to stop them. They're coming back with a new attack soon. We're not going to give them amnesty until they've had a Nuremberg trial, and we'll pray for them when they're getting hauled up there after a jury, after they've been found guilty, before we hang their asses for crimes against humanity. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Check out this headline. You probably saw this in the Atlantic. Let's declare a pandemic amnesty. We need to forgive one another for what we did and said we were in the dark about COVID. See, this is that insanity plea I'm talking about. Let's read some of this article because it's fascinating. We have to put these fights aside and declare a pandemic amnesty. We can leave out the willful purveyors of actual misinformation. Really? So we're going to leave out Tony Fauci and the NIH and the CDC and the FDA that all lied to us, while forgiving the hard calls that people had no choice but to make with imperfect knowledge. Oh, so there it is. Now let's forgive them. They were making hard calls. They didn't have the information. Los Angeles County closed its beaches in summer 2020 ex post facto. This makes no more sense than my family's massed hiking trips. But we need to learn from our mistakes and then let them go. We need to forgive the attacks too. Okay, well, let's think about it. Let's go on. All of this gloating and defensiveness continues to gobble up a lot of social energy and to drive the culture wars, especially on the internet. These discussions are heated, unpleasant, and ultimately unproductive. In the face of so much uncertainty, getting something right had a hefty element of luck. Oh, so it's luck that the high wire was right like 99.9999% of the time. And similarly, getting something wrong wasn't a moral failing. Oh, wasn't it? The standard saying is that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. I agree with that. But dwelling on the mistakes of history can lead to a repetitive doom loop as well. Let's acknowledge that we made complicated choices in the face of deep uncertainty, and then try to work together to build back and move forward. Well, look, there's some of that sentiment that I agree with. I've told you on the show, we've got to learn to forgive. We've got to start having these conversations with our families again. Thanksgiving's right around the corner. Here comes Christmas. Even though we were all banned from the Thanksgiving table and Christmas table last year, like we had, leprosy or something, let's be the ones that forgive so we can go back. But do we forget? Where are we at? So I want to discuss this for a moment, because the concept of amnesty, which is like, let's just drop hands and forget it ever happened, really is on the back of a concept, I would say, called forgiveness. So I think in some ways, what's being asked of us is to forgive our families that banned us from the tables and were mean to us and said they never wanted to see us or our children again. And I think forgiveness is a good thing. But in order to forgive, there's something that has to happen. First of all, I would really like to take this moment for everyone out there that thought they were opposed to the things that I was saying and were really down with censoring the high wire and all those other things. You know, could you please articulate for me exactly what it is that we are supposed to forgive? You see, because I don't know. I don't know what you know and what you don't know and what you don't know that you don't know. And I think that that's important in this place of forgiveness. So what are we supposed to forgive? Are we supposed to forgive the fact that, you know, you locked down and took away our jobs, our dreams of having a future? That in that process you destroyed our economy, not just in America, but around the world? Are we supposed to forgive that move? Are we supposed to forgive all the sanitizing and the spraying and the invasive, you know, destruction of our nasal passages as you tested us with a product that in itself couldn't even test properly? And how about all those that died and weren't treated right in hospitals, and we couldn't even get to them to say goodbye, our loved ones, our elderly, our aunts, our uncles, our mothers, our fathers? Instead, we were left outside and they were left alone. We couldn't go to a funeral. And how about all the suicides that took place, and the child abuse and domestic abuse and drug abuse, or turning our children into hypochondriacs? Are they going to forgive us for that, for destroying their education and putting them behind in reading and math? Are we forgiving for all of these reasons, or will our children forgive us? And how about denying people transplants because they didn't want an experimental vaccine that might cause the very problem they needed a transplant for? And then the police brutality, attacking those people that were standing in their truth, that wanted to watch their child play in a sports event without wearing a mask because they knew, as we now know, masks don't work. Should we forgive the president who promised us that he wouldn't force a vaccine upon us, then took away jobs from the military, from police officers, from frontline doctors and firefighters, leaving them with nowhere to go? And then the injuries, people suffering from all sorts of seizures that are unexplained, being left in hospitals, and the lies that were done by the pharmaceutical industry saying that these things never happened. And then those problematic vaccines, not only are they hurting people, but they're still being mandated on our children. Do we forgive while we're continuing to give this product to our innocent children that aren't at risk? And how many headlines of athletes crashing into the floor, unable to ever play again, maybe dead, or all of the people, the performers and the singers that can't get through a concert or can't do a concert any longer? This brand new normal. Is this what we're supposed to forgive and forget and have amnesty for while it's happening right now? And most importantly, as you talk about the luck factor, I guess, well, if you got this right, you were lucky. No, I have to be very clear. We've said many times and shown you proof that we told you that they did not test whether or not the vaccine could stop transmission. During the trials, this is now known to everybody, but we knew it because it was written in our own emergency use authorization in the very beginning. We didn't get lucky. We were reading the science when you were quoting experts that ended up being liars. But how about those doctors that weren't liars? How about the inventor of the mRNA technology? Did he get lucky? Did Robert Malone get lucky when he warned the world, I invented this technology and it's not being used correctly and it's going to cause serious harm? Really? The inventor got lucky? No, what he got was censored. He got shut down by the very people that we're being asked now to give amnesty to. Oh, how convenient. Or what about the doctors that still have their licenses under attack by laws that just got passed in California and are being written in other states, California law, to regulate dissemination of misinformation related to COVID-19, meaning if you said any of the things that now prove to be true, like the vaccine doesn't work, or this virus has a very low death rate, or maybe you should try ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, you could lose your license. Or in the case of the most world-renowned heart doctor in the world, Dr. Peter McCullough, he now has his board certifications that make him a cardiologist being taken away. Why? Because he's been quoting the science from around the world on blood clots, on thrombocytopenia, on myocarditis, the swelling of the heart, which is something he knows better than anyone else about. But still, no, in the moment where his license is being removed and he is under attack and where his certifications are being taken away, we're supposed to give amnesty right now? You see, this is the problem. We are not even through this situation. And I have not heard you articulate. I'm still listening. I'm still listening for exactly what it is you understand I'm supposed to forgive you for. Because there's a word that goes along with forgiveness if we're going to look at sort of the biblical or spiritual nature of this. And that word is repent. You see, in order to deserve to be forgiven, you must articulate what you're being forgiven for. That's called repenting. Or how about, when we think of a court case, where's your remorse? What are you remorseful for? Please explain to me what you think you did wrong here. Because in the Nuremberg trials, which is what may be about to happen should we get a new Senate and Congress here in the United States of America, the doctors did not repent. They did not say we made a mistake. What they said was, we didn't know better. There was no way for us to know. We were following orders. We were just doing what we were told. There was no way to know better. The science changed on us. As it turns out now, obviously sitting in this courtroom, it wasn't okay to test on innocent children products that hadn't been properly safety tested. It wasn't okay to avoid the proof of myocarditis and blood clotting and thrombocytopenia and anaphylaxis and all the things that we were seeing with the products. Okay, yes, benefit of hindsight now, maybe you could say that, but we didn't know it then. Therefore, we must be forgiven. Well, I'm all about forgiveness, but I'm not even ready for that conversation until I hear those that made this mistake, those that continue to censor, those that continue to attack, and those that will not admit that these are not sudden adult dead syndrome deaths. We are not randomly seeing the rise of death and excess mortality around the world because maybe we locked down for the wrong reasons. No, when you stop being mystified by this rise in death and get to the reality that you gave an unproven, untested pharmaceutical product that was killing every animal in the animal trials prior to giving it to human beings, when you admit that just maybe it's the vaccine that is now killing all of us around the world that are dying and collapsing on fields and collapsing on stages. It seems to me we're a long ways away from that when I think about where